Welcome to Action Island presented by FanDuel. I'm Maria Marino, back here with our NBA crew, Gilles Gallant, Jim Turvey, and Grant Neefer. We're going to work our way around this beautiful island with a pair of best bets from each of the guys. And along the way, the Island Council votes on our favorite picks to include in a same-game parlay for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. The series now turning to Dallas with the Mavs down 0-2 and facing these road warrior Celtics. What do I mean? Well, here's a look at the best road win percentages in NBA postseason history over a 3-year span. Let's start with the Lakers. Between 2001 and 2003, they had a 739 playoff win percentage on the road, including the second and third championship runs for the Kobe and Shaq teams that pulled off a three-peat, thanks in part to the late, great Jerry West, R.I.P., the logo. Now, checking in with a 741 road win percentage during playoffs, the Bulls from 1991 to 1993. This was the span of the first three-peat for Michael Jordan's Bulls, during which Michael averaged 33 points across 9 finals road games. And tying that same road win percentage of 741 during playoffs, your current Celtics. They, of course, lost in the finals in 2022 and again in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, now trying to finish the job for the franchise's first title since 2008. All right, fellas, I don't know if I would go putting these Celtics in those in the same category of some of those other great teams quite yet, but they're obviously in the driver's seat during this series thus far. But will Dallas have something to say about that, Gilles?
I mean, I got to think Kyrie Irving should, because he's really been one of the big reasons why they're down 0-2. His offense has been completely absent. Now, coming into this series, I knew Drew Holiday and Derek White were going to try to make things tough for him, but I thought that at least he would still be able to be effective. But he has just been completely invisible in this series so far. And if he's not showing up, Luka can only do so much. And that's pretty much why they're down 0-2, I think, at this stage.
Well, Jim, you were on with me yesterday on Nothing But Bet, and you said you're a little Dallas curious. Has that moved at all, or are you still kind of firmly curious?
I'm definitely intrigued still. A big part of that was Porzingis, and as we do this, it's still questionable. I think we all kind of think that they're going to sit on that until the last second. But I think it is, if you're on the Dallas side of things, I haven't officially put anything in yet. I like them in the first half. We talked through that a little bit yesterday. But full game, I think that if you're on the Dallas side of things, this is, you never want to root for a player to be injured, but it does seem like, at best case, he's still going to be a little bit jittery, right? Like he was coming off an injury, he injured something else. They're saying it's unrelated, but it is one of those things where anyone who's ever played sport before, if you have one injury, you tend to favor certain things. Like everything becomes a little funky when you have that core injury to deal with. So I do think there's some worries there on the Boston side of things, and Porzingis is such a key that I think if you're on the Dallas side of things, you, again, not rooting for injury, but you don't hate to see that he's a little bit dinged up.
And Grant, I have to give some props to you, because I believe you were on Boston as soon as they traded for Drew Holiday in the offseason, but you had some leans toward Dallas coming into this series. How are you feeling at this point with where things are headed?
I mean, I'm obviously not loving it. If the last game would have gone Dallas's way, it'd be sitting a lot better. I mean, I still think that they're a decent bet. But I mean, the problem is that they're saying at plus 550 odds most places. And I feel like that's just a little bit tough to bet with a team down 0-2 that was a plus 180, I want to say, to win the series before the series started. I feel like the odds haven't adjusted enough for that 2-0 being down 2-0. I still like the Mavs. If they win this game, I'm probably going to put even more money on the Mavericks than I already have, just because I think that this coming into the series, I thought it was pretty much a coin flip. I thought the odds were way off, and it just hasn't gone their way. I mean, they started off game one just getting absolutely crushed by Porzingis in the first quarter and can't really come back from that too easily. Last game could have easily gone their way. So this has kind of been a storyline all throughout, at least this round and the last round for the Celtics. I mean, Indiana was right in almost every single game with the Celtics. And like before that, I'm not even counting those series because Cleveland was without Mitchell for half of it, and they're just not even close to as good a team as any team in the Western Conference playoffs. And Miami was without Butler. So Celtics have had an easy road, and they came real close to giving a few away to the Pacers. So I think Dallas can get right back in this. Boston has gotten pretty lucky throughout the playoffs. They're a great team. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying that prior to this series starting, in my opinion, it was pretty close to a coin flip.
Well, now is certainly the time if you're Dallas, right? But we're going to get everybody's favorite picks. Before we do that, want to remind everyone tuning in that Action Island is presented by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel Sportsbook today and get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. New users in Massachusetts and Ohio will receive $300 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, without further ado, let's get everybody's best bets. Let's get to voting, and let's build this stellar same game parlay. Okay, Mavs, Celts, game 3. Gilles Gallant, you're up first. What are your favorite bets?
All right, well, I'm going to start right with Drew Holiday, and I'm going to take over 10.5 rebounds and assists. So he has hit this in 6 straight games, 8 of the last 9 games overall. In game 1, he had a combined 13 rebounds and assists, and in game 2 had 14 rebounds and assists. I think the rebounds is the most important part here because through 2 games, he has just been unbelievable with the board. 16.5 rebound chances through 2 games, 9.5 rebounds average through 2 games. In game 1, he had 8 rebounds on 14 chances and 11 rebounds on 19 chances. He just has that nose for the ball. Also, from an assist standpoint, averaging 9.5 potential assists in each of these games. His minutes have gone up as the playoffs have gone on. I imagine he's going to play at least 35 to 38 minutes, which should be a good spot for him to get over this line. So Drew Holiday over 10.5 rebounds and assists is the first option. The other one, and I think the market is starting to see this shift as well, is Luka Doncic under on his assists. It was at 9.5 earlier today. I still like it at under 8.5. And part of the reason why I like the under on Luka's assists in this game is the potential assists keep falling. They keep dropping as the playoffs go on, and that conversion rate is just not sustainable. So throughout the playoffs, he averages 14.6 potential assists. 16 in round 1 against the Clippers, 15 in round 2 against the Thunder, but then that drops to 13.5 against the Timberwolves, and now it's down to 10.5 potential assists through 2 games against the Celtics. Like, he had 11 assists in game 2, but that was on 14 potential assists. That is just not sustainable from a role player standpoint to be able to hit those shots. Just a lot of assist variance with Luka as well. He had 1 assist in game 1 on only 7 potentials. And the reason being is the Celtics are just limiting those passing lanes, taking away the corner 3 and the lob. And with the way that Boston is defending the role players, like the margin for conversion on assists is just really slim. Also now dealing with a rib injury to go with the knee injury that he was dealing with throughout the playoffs. I mean, with or without Porzingis, I think the Celtics have defended the lob threat well enough to take away those 2 to 3 assist opportunities per game to Gafford and Lively. So Luka Doncic under 8.5 assists is the second option for this same game parlay.
Well, as expected, 2 very nice options. Let's put it to a vote, and then we'll get into why we like what we like. All right, everybody, let's see those ballots. Oh, we got a sweep here. We got a sweep for my guy, Drew Holiday. I mean, I keep saying it, but what's not to like about Drew Holiday? Just does everything. He's so trusted out there on the court. He's playing a heavy, consistent role, always makes the right play. So that's kind of why I like this, in addition to, you know, the Luka assist being just sort of volatile the way that Gilles explained it. I mean, the 1 assist on 7 potentials in game 1, that was outrageous. I mean, I don't think we're going to see close to that, but I could still see this going under. So I did like that as well. Jim, why did you ultimately go with Drew?
Yeah, actually, I like both of these a lot as well. I think you kind of nailed it with the volatility of the Luka assist being why I skewed towards maybe the safer play here in the Drew rebounds and assists. Because I do think there is a path to Dallas's shooters who maybe are a little more timid and don't hit as much on the road, starting to heat up at home. But even still, I think that Boston. Joe mentioned how well they've defended the lob. That is very true, and it's really what's cut into assists. But the Drew of it all, Joe mentioned with the rebound chances and potential assists. Love both of those, and he's absolutely killing it on both of those fronts right now. This isn't like he's fluked into some bigger numbers. Also mentioned the minutes going up. So just all around, I'm on the Drew play. It's one of my favorites for this game as a whole. So it was an easy choice to hop on here.
Grant, was there anything else you wanted to add as to why you went that route?
I mean, not really. I think Drew's just the better overall pick of the two. I don't have anything against Luka assists. Don't love it, don't hate it. But Drew, over the course of the season, like regular season even, he was averaging right around this number, playing just 32 minutes a game. He should get high 30s, potentially low 40s in this spot again. He's clearly trying as hard as he can to get as many boards as possible. I mean, we've seen it gradually go up all throughout the playoffs. He's just a great overall player, and he's just so heavily involved that this number is just quite a bit too low.
Sounds good to me. That means we have the first leg of our parlay, courtesy of Gilles. Drew Holiday over on his rebounds and assists. Gilles just keeping it so cool over there in those shades. But Jim Turvey, let's turn things over to you and get your best bets for game 3.
Yeah, all right. Our first option here is going to be Daniel Gafford over 14.5 points plus rebounds. So he's hit this. Round 1 was a little bit quiet for Gafford. Mavericks were still kind of figuring out their lineups, but ever since he's kind of reestablished, I guess you would say, himself in this Dallas rotation in the postseason, he's hit this 10 of his last 13 games. And what really stood out to me is the second half of game 2. It looked like Gafford kind of was the piece that started clicking for Dallas. So in that second half, he had 11 points and 7 rebounds. But I think more importantly, he got over 15 minutes of run. Derek Lively got under 5 minutes. And the second half to me was really where Dallas started to put things together. They won the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, he had 7 points and 4 rebounds, and Lively didn't play. So I referenced, I believe it was on GDD, that a Matt Issa article that really broke down and really kind of walked through what Dallas was able to do in the fourth quarter. It's, part of why, again, I'm Dallas curious. I'm intrigued by the things they put together in that fourth quarter. And one of it was starting to be able to get that lob threat back with Gafford and kind of putting Boston into positions that they hadn't been able to in previous times in this series. So I think this is going to be a big game for Gafford. I like targeting his points and rebounds specifically here for the over.
Fair enough. I'm okay with some Dallas role players getting more involved here, but what's your second best bet?
So second one, Old Reliable. I've rolled this out on every show and platform possible, every game possible. It is the Celtics and Mavericks, but the Celtics are the key component here. It's the fourth quarter under. So the Celtics, I've referenced these before, so bear with me if you've seen this cap before. I'm going to roll through the numbers again, though. So it is now up to 12-4 to the under on these fourth quarter unders for Boston in the postseason. This is coming off the back of the under going 52, 29, and 1 during the regular season this year for Boston. And for last season, it was 66 and 36 to the under for these fourth quarters. So Boston, I've talked about this before, that there's optionality to it. They can be blowing a team out, or they can be blown out because they are a high variance team that takes a lot of threes. Dallas hasn't been taking as many threes this series. It's part of why they've been struggling. But if they are successful, it's going to be two teams with a lot of threes, high variance. We get into a blowout. That's great news for the fourth quarter under. The other route to this is a close game because Boston's tight offense still struggles. That clutch offense isn't what we want to see of it. However, their clutch defense is historically good, incredibly strong. So if it's a tight game, that's also good news for the under. So there's multiple routes to this success. And what it has meant is that they have just been a fourth quarter under juggernaut this postseason, this regular season, and even last regular and postseason. So it's one of these that you can just kind of, you don't have to, the number's not going to move, like that Luka number, we went down from 9.5 to 8.5. This, whatever they're going to post on it, it's going to be good to go. These are all against closing lines here. So the trend holds strong. So we're going to be looking for a few points down the stretch here in the fourth quarter of this game.
It doesn't hurt either that we've seen a couple instances now of Dallas kind of slowing down because Luka's just kind of running out of gas late in these games. But we have two options, fellas. Let's put it to a vote and pick our favorite. Let's show those votes. I love how Grant puts it like in front of his eyes like a blindfold.
Well, it's kind of like the perfect size.
So I'll just say this because I'm the odd person out. I just went Gafford here because I feel like Dallas has just got to play even a fraction better than what they did the last couple of games. And so I could see their bench, just not even necessarily their bench, just their role players kind of stepping up here. But Grant, I'm curious, what made you go with the fourth quarter under?
And just basically the stats that Jim listed. I mean, it's been incredibly consistent pretty much all the way going back to last season. I mean, during the regular season, the last 2 years, 60-70% hit rate. So far in the postseason, 75% hit rate. I mean, that's just kind of I didn't look at this much at all before this show. It's just those numbers speak for themselves, and Jim entirely convinced me.
Well, there's a reason he calls it all reliable. But Gilles, just a quick thought from you. Was there anything else that swayed you that way versus the Gafford pick?
I mean, Jim had me as soon as he said this pick on every other show. So as soon as he said that, I was like, well, there's no way that I'm overlooking that pick. Not to say that I didn't think the Gafford pick was good too. But I just think there's just so much overwhelming evidence from a trend standpoint and just so many outs that we could get for this to happen that I just lean that way more.
So the Action Network version of You Had Me at Hello is essentially, I've said this on every show. So that's what we got from Jim today. And that means we have the second leg of our same game parlay. So it's the fourth quarter going under the total. Okay, that leaves Grant Neefer. Grant, let's get your favorite two bets, and then we will vote and come up with another leg for the parlay.
So the first one I'm going with is Al Horford, under 18.5 points, rebounds, assists. I actually got it at 19.5, but I was thinking about hitting the alt unders all the way down to like 15.5. So this is either a good bet or an absolutely fantastic bet based on the Porzingis news. If Porzingis ends up playing, I absolutely love this bet. It's way too high. Hit the alt unders if you can before the line ends up moving, in my opinion. It's just way too high. I mean, we look at what Horford's done throughout the playoffs, and he's had some big games. Like, he's had 2 or 3 just big games, one of which was against the Cavs in the last game of the series. But we look at how often he's actually hit the over at this number, and at 19.5, it's 11 out of 16. I think it's one more than that if we move it down to 18.5. But almost all those were without Porzingis. I think he has hit the over once with Porzingis in the lineup, once out of 5 games. And I'm not really expecting that to happen here if Porzingis isn't playing. He's going to take a big hit to the minutes. He's just really not doing a ton, and a lot of his numbers are inflated because, I mean, beginning of last series, Indy was just kind of letting him sit in the corner and shoot all he wants. Gave him a ton of opportunities. He had 12 plus 3-point attempts multiple times in the last series, even in the last 8 games. Porzingis being in there just changes everything. And even if he's not in there, this line's probably still a little bit inflated. I mean, there's so many options on this team. He's going to play the minutes, but he's really not doing a ton while he's in there. He's older than I am, which I feel pretty old, and I couldn't imagine running up and down the court right now at my age. It's just a number that's a little bit inflated. I'm sure it's going to drop if Porzingis gets ruled in. It'll probably go down to 17.5. And if you want to wait and kind of see how the news plays out, you can. I'd still hit the under regardless of if Porzingis is in or if he's out. I think it's going to be inflated. So you can either gamble now on top of your gamble, or you can wait till later and wait for the Porzingis news. But I think it's going to be too high regardless.
Interesting. Well, look, we don't have to wait too much longer, I would imagine. Also, I'm just going to say, I love the confidence. I thought you were going to be like, this could either be really great or really like bad. And you're like, this is either great or fantastic. So, I mean, what more could we ask for? But let's get another bet from you, and then we'll decide.
All right. So the second one I'm rolling with is Derek White under 15.5 points. To me, this is a little bit too high especially if Porzingis into playing, just a little bit of usage taken away from him. So far in the series, we haven't seen a ton out of Tatum and Brown compared to other series. Like they both played fairly bad and the usage hasn't been there. Going over to Dallas, I think they're going to see an uptick in usage. I think that it's just been waiting. I mean, Drew's obviously had his way with Kyrie this entire series. I think they're going to try and stop focusing as much on Brown and Tatum and let them get a little bit more shot attempts out there. But on top of that, Derek White, his line's kind of been inflated ever since that first series versus Miami, where he just absolutely torched them every single night pretty much. I mean, first 6 games of the playoffs, he was averaging 23 points per game. Since then, it's under 15, I believe, or right around 15. And that's with one 23-point outing and playing 4 games against the Pacers, who, guess what? The Pacers are one of the best matchups you can possibly get in basketball for scoring points. So this is an entirely different series here than the Pacers series was. He's not the same player he was playing out of his mind in the Miami series. The usage isn't going to be there. He's hit the under in 6 out of the last 10, which not great, not terrible, but he's been right around this 13, 14, 15-point mark pretty much the entire time. And I haven't projected for a full 2 points under this, so you're getting some decent value there. I'm rolling with the under.
Fair enough. I feel like, you know, the point you made too about the usage is interesting because, you know, we certainly haven't seen the best scoring game out of Jason Tatum for one thing, but we got a couple of options. Let's put it to a vote. All right, show the votes. Let's see it. It's a whiteout. Sweep. All Derek White on the under of his points prop. I feel like, you know what? I understand both of these bets, but Al Horford is aging like fine wine. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he just, you know, somehow ends up having a good game. But Gilles, why don't you give us your reasoning? What was the compelling case for White for you?
Well, I think Grant made a good point about the usage of Brown and Tatum, where I expect in a road game, they're going to be much more focused on getting their shots. And I also think with Derek White, his points prop is very dependent on how his 3-point shot is falling, because nearly 70% of all of his shots in the playoffs come from 3-point. And right now his 3-point line is set at 3.5. And there's still a chance where he could hit 3 or 4 threes, be impactful in this game, and still fall short of the points prop because he just doesn't really go to the rim the way that the other guys do, like a Tatum and Brown. So for me, I think there's just, again, more outs where this could fall short than, say, like Horford, for example.
Fair enough. Well, hey, that means we have 3 legs here for a same game parlay. Let's recap what we've come up with throughout the show. So Drew Holiday to go over on his rebounds and assists. That was courtesy of Gilles Gallant. We had Jim Turvey checking in. He likes the Boston and Dallas 4th quarter under. Also, Grant Niefer coming in with the Derek White under on his points prop. Now, if you were to play this parlay, you're looking at odds of around plus 425 at the moment. All right, so at this time of the show, I like to give a little bonus bet. So here we go. I'm going with Derek Jones Jr. over on his points, rebounds, and assists. Now, he has cleared 13.5 in 7 of his last 10 games. And the 3 that he didn't clear were on the road. And that's where he's averaging 4 fewer minutes per game. On average, he's also scoring 2 more points per game at home. He's shooting 39% from 3 as opposed to 29% home versus road. And then he's also grabbing on average 1 more rebound per game at home. So yeah, this is pretty simple for me. As I've been kind of saying, I see a path for Dallas playing way better. And that starts with their offense flowing more as a whole. And specifically role players just stepping up to the plate and helping Luka Doncic out. Now, another inspiration for this was one Jim Turvey, because Jim pointed this out to me, just some of the home road splits, particularly for Derek Jones Jr. So Jim, I wanted to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, I really like it. You mentioned the home road splits. I think we should reiterate that though, because it was part of the cap, but to reiterate, it's 39% at home, 29% on the road. That's a massive split, and it makes perfect sense for these role players who have looked a little bit shaken at times in these first two games. I want to see the confidence from him. He gets one in, he's going to be more likely to take second. And obviously he's shooting much better at home. So I like this a lot. I definitely like adding it as the fourth leg of this.
Yes, let's hope so. All right. And if you wanted to throw this in with the parlay, you could get odds of around plus 963 at the moment. Again, just adds a little more fun, a little more flavor to it. But looking forward to hopefully an exciting game 3. Want to keep the excitement going here on Action Island. We'll be back later in the week. Once again, we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. So for Gilles Gallant, Jim Turvey, and Grant Neefer, I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on the island. Enjoy the game.